WTBQ. Ain't I got you on the back foot, and you know I got you really good.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Katie Krahulik, and you're listening to Leading Ladies, a women's talk show that features relatable, intelligent, compassionate, powerful, productive women of the 21st century. With me in the studio today, I have Erin Shanahan, who will be my co-host.
Hi, everyone.
And joining us is today's first guest, Eileen Patterson. How are you doing today, Eileen?
I'm doing well, ladies. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for coming in. We
No
appreciate
problem.
it. So Eileen does a number of different things. And so can you give us a little overview of what it is you're doing currently?
Well, I am a small business owner here in Warwick. I am a village trustee on the village board in the village of Warwick. I'm a mom. So I'm involved in, HSA at my son's school, which is the same as PTA, but at his school it's called HSA. I'm involved in my church, and I'm the chair of Warwick and Bloom, which is a beautification committee here in the town of Warwick.
Great. Sounds like you're super busy.
I am. I like to fill my day.
Yes, absolutely. So let's see. Let's start with your position on the village board as a trustee.
Yeah.
So you're the only female on the Village of Warwick Board of Trustees, correct?
Yes.
And how long have you been on the board for?
I just started my third term. My first term started in 2006.
Okay.
And then my oldest, my have three kids. My oldest is now 22, but at the time she was a junior in high school in 2000 when that term ended in 2010. So I decided I wouldn't run for that term because I needed to help her get ready for college.
Right.
And then I did. And so 2 years went by and there was an election. So I ran in 2012 and was elected for 4 years. And now I've just started my third term. So
That's great.
Yeah. So 10 years been around, 8 of them on the board.
Okay. So what does being on the board entail, and what are some of your responsibilities as a trustee?
Well, our board, we manage our little tiny village. A lot of it is each of the trustees are given a liaison to manage different aspects of things that go on in the village. I'm liaison to the Chamber of Commerce, to the hospital, to the senior citizens, things that having to do with efficiency and safety, government efficiency and safety. So, but if we, like, for example, kind of controversial recent things was the parking enforcement officers that we hired. That was me and another trustee, because I was responsible for parking and safety. And so that was kind of a not such a popular, publicly not such a popular idea or change, but a lot of people have come up to me and told me they're really happy with the change.
Right.
So yeah, that kind of stuff.
Right. So just going back to when you did start, on the board back in 2006, I'm curious, what was that like, kind of your first try being on the board, alongside all these other people, and having never done, something like that before?
Mm-hmm.
How did you kind of fit into that role?
Well, it's interesting because I moved to Warwick in 2002 when I married my husband, and I retired. Before that, I had worked on a trading floor. I was a single mom and worked on a trading floor. It was a crazy, crazy job, but I loved it. And then when I moved here, I retired, so to speak, and but that didn't last very long because I couldn't sit still.
I was about to say.
Yeah. So, plus I had a new baby, and but I started writing for the Warwick Valley Dispatch.
Right.
And I thought it was a good way to sort of manage my own hours and get to know the community. And I can write, I'm a pretty good writer. So so I did that, and I ended up covering the village board, like you do, Katie.
Right.
And I did that for several years and realized an election cycle came up, and I realized I knew enough about what was going on because I'd been writing about the activities on the village board, and I thought, let me try this as my next adventure.
Right.
And it worked out. I wasn't, I've never been accused of being intimidated or shy.
Right.
So I really didn't, there were new things to learn. The budget is a daunting process, and making sure you're doing right for the people who have elected you. And it may sound corny and hokey, but it's true.
Of course.
So some of that, but I had the guys who I was working with, as long as I've been on the board, I've been the only woman.
Okay.
But the mayor's amazing, and the other people who are on the board are always happy
sure.
to teach. And maybe there's things that I've taught them because everybody comes at it with a different approach.
Definitely. So, how does that kind of affect your position on the board, being a woman?
It really doesn't.
Oh, okay.
I have to say, in preparing for this chat with you today, I did think about it because
Right.
I don't think about it.
Right.
It's not something like I'm going to go be a woman on the village
Right,
board
that's a
today.
good
It's just
thing.
I'm going to go to a meeting
On the board, right.
There were three occasions that I can think of where it kind of stood out
Okay.
for me, and in 10 years, that's not bad.
Oh, definitely.
One of them was with a resident where we were dealing with a situation that the resident was not happy with, and it was a man, and he was a big man, and I had to go meet him somewhere to talk about whatever the situation was. And my husband came along, not for any reason. It was just an evening, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to meet so and so. Do you want to come along? Sure. And so he did, and we meet this gentleman, and the first thing he said was, "What's he doing here?" So I was immediately, because he was not happy with what was going on, and I was immediately like, felt a little bit, nothing happened. There was no, I was not
Right.
threatened.
Right.
I wasn't hurt. There was never that kind of, but for a second I thought, wow, I'm glad he is here, because were you going to try and, not physically, but in some other way, be bigger, be stronger than me
Right.
and take advantage of the fact that I'm a woman? Went by very quickly. But again, I just thought of that. But there was another time, which was really funny, because there was an issue going on with the hospital, and they were feeling frustrated about not getting the right information from the village board. So I kind of put together a meeting that was me. There were board members from the hospital there. There were representatives from each of the different boards from the village there. There were town representatives there. About 14 of us at the meeting. And we had to talk about all these issues. So I kind of steered the meeting and, kept us on task. And as it happened, I was the only woman at the table. I didn't even realize it. It didn't even stand out for me. And the meeting went very well. So we're leaving, and one person who is a very good friend of mine, who I adore, in his attempt to be supportive and congratulatory to me, puts his arm around me as we're walking out to the car, and he says, "I am so proud of you." And I thought, oh, that's nice, because it was productive, and I was kind of proud of myself.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And then he said, "You were the only woman at that table, and you didn't let that stop you." And I was really angry. Like, that had nothing to
Right.
do with
Of
it. Like,
course.
why should that stop me? Why
Right.
in 2000 and whatever, 10 or 12 or 14, whatever that
Right.
happened, why are you saying? It just struck me as such an odd thing to say. He meant it in the nicest possible
Of
way.
course.
But it's still on his mind, and
Right.
it wasn't on mine.
Exactly,
So-
and the fact that it's even being referenced
Yeah.
is part of the problem.
Right.
That's what you're saying.
Yes.
Right.
But again, in 10 years, and then there are other times, like if I enforce a rule among the village hall, the DPW staff, or the village staff, I'm the B. Do you know what I mean? But if a man did it, he's just doing his job.
Right.
But
Right.
that's not
Right.
really that prevalent. Again, I'm just bringing these things up because I was coming here and I'm thinking, well,
Yeah.
But other than that, I'm assertive anyway. And it's never hindered my being a woman hasn't played a role. I didn't run because I'm a woman. I hope I didn't get elected because I'm a woman.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So
Absolutely, and
yeah.
that's great. That's
yeah,
great
it is
to
good.
hear. It's
It is good.
refreshing.
Yeah.
But we are bringing these things up, so I'm glad you're channeling it all and bringing it and speaking today with us about it. But I am curious about, so I cover the village board meetings for the Dispatch.
Yeah.
And I sit in and I listen, and basically these are just roundtable discussions where you talk about local proposals, events, and
Yeah.
questions, concerns, and everything in between with community members and different
Organizations.
things going on in the area. And so I see you, in your element at that table, and you have no problem, taking the floor
I don't.
and voicing your opinion.
No,
no,
I
you
don't.
just
I'm the youngest of 6.
Right.
And my brothers and sisters are also very assertive. So if I wasn't outgoing, I wouldn't have eaten yet. I wouldn't have gotten my choice on what we watched on TV or
Right.
where we went. So yeah, never been accused of being shy or holding back.
Which
So-
is fantastic.
Which is, sometimes it's good. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes, sometimes it's like, could you not ask that
Right.
14 questions today, Eileen? But, I haven't, again, it's working for me. It's always worked for me.
right. And how important important is that, in that job, in that role?
Well, you're there to you don't always know all the answers, and you have to kind of assume that the people that you're representing have questions or don't know the answers either. So you have to let's think this through. Let's really drill down and get all the information that we need before we make a decision. Because even something like the parking or, some other, like right now on Monday, we're going to have the cell tower question before us. Somebody wants to add more towers to the top of the hospital. That's important. We got to work that through, and I have some really pointed questions for the people who want to do that, and hopefully it will have a positive impact for the village.
Right, absolutely.
So it is important to ask questions.
Definitely. Okay, so after this short break, we will continue speaking with Eileen about her story and impact on the community. I'm Katie Krahulik here with Erin Shanahan, and you're listening to Leading Ladies right here on WTBQ Radio.
All right now.
The Epic Times, your #1 go-to Orange County newspaper for local and national news, reporting on all the happenings in your part of the county. And this is what one of their readers had to say.
I have really enjoyed this issue that I've read. It's wonderful that someone finally put this out there. My compliments, folks. Please send me a real newspaper.
To take advantage of the 5 free weeks of the Epic Times, visit epicorange.com or call 845-200-3101.
State Farm in the Clock Tower on Main Street in Warwick. One stop for all your business and personal insurance and financial services. Life, home, auto, disability, or business insurance, as well as banking and retirement planning. Call 986-7100 or come in and meet the team.
Have a problem with your computer? Need an upgrade or a boost to your computer speed? The Computer Guy offers sales, service, and repair at competitive rates for your business or home. The Computer Guy builds servers and workstations, sets up secure wireless connections, transfers data, including system installation, remote access, and backup of your daily files. Trust the Computer Guy by calling 845-988-0708 or visit them at 14 West Street in Warwick.
Last night I banged my knee against the coffee table. That's because when I go to bed, I shut off every light in the house. But Orange and Rockland showed me that's only one way to cut energy costs. Now I put the air conditioners on timers, run the dishwasher only when it's full, and use their energy calculators to analyze my energy usage and save on my monthly bill. Now, if only they could show me how to see in the dark. For more tips, visit oru.com/100tips, Facebook or Twitter. Orange and Rockland. Everything matters.
Hi, this is Dr. David Leach, the superintendent of the Warwick Valley Central School District and host of Your Schools. Listen every Monday at 12 noon to learn what's happening in your schools right here on WTBQ, radio worth listening to.
Hi, this is Sarah O'Connell.
And this is Jonah Treebwasser.
And we're the hosts of Radio Rotary, heard every Saturday morning at 11:30.
Each week we chat with your neighbors about great things happening in your community and around the world.
Radio Rotary.
Right here on WTBQ, radio worth listening to.
WTBQ. And I got you on the back foot, and you know I got you really good.
Hello and welcome back. This is Katie Krahulik hosting Leading Ladies here at WTBQ Radio. Erin Shanahan is here co-hosting with me, and right now we're speaking with Eileen Patterson. And we were just talking about Eileen's role as a trustee on the village board. And I want to shift gears a little bit. You mentioned before that you did a little bit of reporting for the Dispatch, a lot of reporting for the Dispatch.
Yep.
And I want to talk about that and the concept of credibility, as this is something that I think you can especially appreciate and relate to as a former reporter and as a village trustee. So, how important is it, or how important is your reputation and reliability, especially in a community setting and as a woman?
Excuse me. It's really important. I think that it's no different as a man or a woman.
Right.
Your credibility and your reliability should be the same no matter who you are. And ours is a really small town.
Right.
It's a really small town. I very often, when new people come or lived here for a while, they're like, why does the mailman know my name? You know what I mean? Like,
Right,
recognize
yeah.
me in ShopRite. It's Mayberry, and I love that about the town of Warwick. It can be frustrating at times as well because you can't change your mind without somebody knowing what's going on.
Right.
But on the other side of it, we're a close knit community. We take care of each other, and so your credibility and your reliability is important, whether you're in a public role or you're a business owner or you are a parent or you're just a person living here, because we count on each other. And so I like to think that I'm the kind of person that I'm going to speak my mind.
Right.
I'm going to be kind about it, but I'm going to speak my mind, but I'm also going to tell the truth. I really do try to practice
Right.
that,
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah.
Do you ever feel that, you have to prove your credibility more so because maybe you're a woman, or do you feel like you have to put more effort in to prove to people that you are reliable? Or?
No, I don't. I mean, like I said, I think it matters for everybody. I think because of the size of the town, when I first came here, I didn't move here because I called the realtor and did all my research on the best schools and what the pastoral landscapes look like and, how much are the taxes. I moved here because I was marrying somebody who lived here.
Right.
So it was kind of like we either lived in Connecticut where I was, or we moved to Warwick where he was. And so we moved to Warwick. So then it was sort of like laying up my groundwork in the town. He was already here.
Right.
And that happens through, your kids in school, or, that's how you really get to know the community, the other people in the
Right.
community, is through school or your volunteer activities. So,
Well, you definitely made your mark here in Warwick. So.
I've heard that before.
What was your first impression of Warwick when?
Well,
you
it's
visited?
funny. I knew Warwick my whole life because my cousins grew up here. In fact, my husband and I have the same godparents, which is kind of weird.
way.
Yeah. It kind of makes people say, like, did you have to get like an extra blood test for that? No, we're not at all related.
so funny.
But my cousins grew up the street from the Pattersons, and they were very good friends. My aunt and uncle were very good friends with my husband's parents.
Okay.
And also my aunt and uncle. So coincidentally, we had the same
Wow.
like my mother shared maternity clothes with my husband's mother.
That's
Isn't that
so
funny?
funny. That's
But
so funny.
It's cool. So anyway, so I've kind of known Warwick because we'd come here to visit, whatever. And actually, as a kid, because we moved around a lot, we lived in a lot of different places. My dad worked for American Express, so we were transferred pretty often. We would come here and be like, "Oh my God, Warwick is so boring. I would never live."
Oh no!
But it's changed a lot over the
Right,
years.
definitely.
And now that I'm raising a family, there's not any place in the world I would rather be to raise a family than Warwick.
Right.
So my first impression was that it's not Connecticut. It's better. People don't look you up and down and make sure that you and your kids are wearing the right label. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's much more down to earth. So I
really
loved it
is.
from the minute I got here.
Oh, good.
Did you anticipate being as involved in the community as you are?
I didn't. It goes back to that
Yeah.
whole 11-hour days on the trading floor,
Right.
to retirement, like this.
Retirement.
Yeah.
Whatever
And then the
that
paper kind of got me involved, knowing what was going on, and then, just making friends and,
Right.
so.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's been really good.
Awesome.
Yep.
So I want to talk about your business a little bit. You're sporting your Creative Vision hat right now.
Yeah. Oh, that's right.
Our listeners can't see that, but that's happening. It's called Creative Vision, and it's a community PR agency.
It's a small business. It's a small business public relations agency.
Okay.
So what I do is I build websites, I create logos, I manage social media, I write press releases. I do anything that's necessary to promote my client.
Right.
So I work with small businesses who are, for example, Jean-Claude's Bakery, best bakery in town, right?
Right.
But their whole thing is they just want to bake. They just want to be a bakery. So they don't necessarily consider like their website or their social media, or
Right.
so I come in and advise on that. And so I have clients who I become their marketing department is really what it comes down to.
That's
So,
perfect for
yep.
a lot of businesses here.
Yes.
And that
it's
makes a
been
lot of
really
sense.
good.
There's people who all they know is their craft.
Exactly.
And that's what
so-
they do. And there's all these other important aspects to starting a business, which
Right.
they might not be professionals at. So
Exactly.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So it's been really fun. I've been doing it since 2012, and
Okay.
it's going really well.
Good.
What made
awesome.
you start the business? What was your inspiration or ambition behind it?
Honestly, it was a lot of the things that I was doing as a volunteer. Like on PTA, I would do the flyers, or I started to do a website for my son. My son goes to St. Stephen's, so I did there. I learned how to create websites doing that. And then I was kind of like, let me actually do this and get paid for doing
Yeah.
it. And it's,
Win-win.
Exactly. So it's been great, and it's slowly been building over the years. And now I've taken the office out of my house and moved it into the village. So it's become more and more time, but it's great.
That's great.
Yeah,
Awesome. Definitely.
It's really good.
So this is fairly recent. You started in 2012, you said.
Mm-hmm.
So it's still kind of fresh, kind of new. What are some of the obstacles or just struggles you faced starting it when you first had the idea to getting clients or?
Yeah, it's funny. I've never ever advertised the business. I've never bought an ad. Every single client I've gotten has been word of mouth, and I've grown it really slowly because I didn't want to jump full time into a full time job with both feet, I should say, into a full time job. So it's grown kind of organically. So I don't mean to say I really didn't have any obstacles.
No, that's fantastic.
I guess it's a sort of thing, but I really just slow and steady wins the race, and I just I would start out and then I'd get, however many number of clients and be like, okay, that's it. I'm not going to have any more because I can't do the job well. And then everybody would kind of fall into place and I'm like, okay, I'll take one more. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
I just signed somebody new on yesterday and I'm back I said to my husband last night, okay, no more clients. He goes, you say that all the time.
I'm sure you'll keep saying
so
it.
that's really how it's gone. I guess it's just, like I said, slow and steady.
Right.
And that's,
And I'm
worked.
sure knowing, so many people in the community, in the area, and doing so much work with everyone helps,
Yeah, and you know what? That goes back to my credibility, my reliability, too, now that you mention it. Yeah. I do have, I think I have a good reputation. I mean,
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. That definitely comes into play there. Okay, so that's amazing. I also want to talk a little bit about the volunteer work you do, because you are so well-rounded and you
I've kind of, come back to, I was doing a lot of different, I joined Rotary. That's a great organization based on community service. And so that's been great. That I just was a couple months ago. But I guess my biggest push is Warwick and Bloom, which is just such a great, it's easy. It's just flowers on Main Street, right? It's just flowers in the pots, but it's works for our merchants. They tell us, they get great feedback from the residents and their visitors. It's all based on funding that we receive from the community. So we do a fundraising letter every year. That's me, right? And I've learned how to garden, but the committee is great. We everybody works, like I write the letter, but there's other people who choose the plants because they know so much more about that than I do. And, everyone else comes up with great ideas for fundraisers and different things that we're doing throughout the year. So that's been really good.
It sounds great.
Yeah.
So why is this work sort of important to you? Why did you choose to go into Warwick and Bloom and join Rotary? And
just because it's just such a great thing to do, to add beauty to the community. My friends are in it. Deb Kroll, I know you know her. She's a good buddy of mine.
Lovely.
She's on the committee. Deborah Sweeten is a really good friend of mine, and I've met other friends through the committee. The mayor's on the committee. It's just, it's important because it brings beauty to the community, but it's just fun. It's just,
Absolutely.
we have a good time.
Absolutely, yes.
It does a good job.
Definitely. And you have 3 children.
I do, yep.
And one of them is your daughter, Kate. She said she's 22 now, you said?
She's 22. She graduated college last year.
Wow.
Congratulations.
With a degree in musical theater.
Amazing.
Yep. She's an amazing singer, just like you. And I don't know if you can sing, no offense, but I know Katie can. And she actually graduated in May. She lives in the city. She lives in Brooklyn.
Good for
She's
her.
doing the very typical starving actor thing. She has 3 part-time jobs that she loves, all of them.
Right.
And she just, in her second audition out of college, she got a co-starring role in an off-Broadway production.
Awesome. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so
good for her.
Yep, it's amazing, and she's on her journey, and she is just. My mother has always said that from the time she was a baby, enters the room, hands first, like, okay, this is what happened.
Right.
She's one of the most confident people I've ever met in my life.
I'm sure she gets a lot of that from you.
You know what? My goal is to let my kids be themselves.
Right.
But if they're great students, that's great. If they're great athletes, that's great. If they're great, photographers, that's great too. But my job is to raise confident kids. So whatever it is you want to do it well, but start with confidence in you, and that's all you need.
Exactly.
And it's worked for them, all 3 of them.
And that's a great message, in general, for anyone. And I was going to ask, because she is so headstrong and ambitious.
Yep.
And my next question would have been, is this something that you considered while raising, a daughter in particular, but children, of course, all the same?
Yeah, she's my oldest. I guess the difference in raising a daughter, I have my other 2 are sons. was more about her, I guess, about her personal and intellectual safety when it comes to life. You know, I'm a little nervous that she's living in the city in Brooklyn, but she has a pit bull, so
She's fine. She's great.
who she rescued from the Humane Society.
Oh,
so yeah, and she's the sweetest dog ever. So I guess that would be the difference. Not that there's a double standard. I want my sons to be safe too, but I guess just, you know, to make sure her heart and she's physically safe, and she is. She's doing really well. I miss her. I don't get to see her as often as I used to, but we text pretty much constantly.
Awesome. 21st century.
Exactly. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, that's great, and I'm so happy to hear that, and send her our best.
I will.
And that's actually it for this half hour. Thank you so much for coming in
you're
today,
welcome.
Eileen.
Thanks
It's a
for
pleasure
having me.
you. Stay tuned, because up next, I'll be speaking with Susan Allee, a woman making a difference on a global scale. This has been Katie Krahulik and Erin Shanahan, and you're listening to Leading Ladies right here on WTBQ Radio.
Hi, this is James Cromwell. I cherish the natural heritage and beauty of the lower Hudson Valley, which is why I decided to make it my home. However, at this moment, our pristine environment is under grave threat by a 650 megawatt fracked gas power plant.
I'm Pramila Malik from ProtectOrangeCounty.org. The CPV Valley Power Plant would be the third largest source of pollution in all of New York State, right here in the heart of Orange County.
But hasn't construction already begun?
Yes, it has, but when citizens unite, it's never too late, especially when your health and safety is at risk. Learn how this plant will impact your home and family by visiting ProtectOrangeCounty.org.
Join us. Email us at stopcpv@gmail.com and follow us on Facebook.
Finally, call Governor Cuomo right now at 518-474-8390. That's 518-474-8390. Tell him our children must not be sacrificed.
Tell him to stop construction of this dangerous plant.
This
now.
is Dr. Calvin Hargis, and I would like to tell you how neurofeedback therapy is helping individuals with severe anxiety regain their ability to thrive, work, and be successful socially and in life. For those with severe anxiety, the simplest tasks in life can immobilize them with irrational fears and doubts that progress and become more entrenched with time. Severe anxiety is hallmarked by abnormal and chaotic brainwave patterns that are uncontrollable and repetitive. But neurofeedback therapy interacts directly with the brain to normalize the chaotic brainwave function associated with anxiety. With biweekly neurofeedback training, anxiety can be substantially reduced or eliminated in as little as 10 weeks in many cases. Endorsed by the American Pediatric Association, neurofeedback therapy is safe, permanent, and fun. If you or a loved one suffers with anxiety, call us at Warwick Brain and Spine Therapy at 845-986-5500 to arrange for your private consultation.
Every Good Deed Title Agency is Orange County's reliable title insurance and settlement services company in the residential and commercial real estate industry. This is Bob Krahulik, the lawyer guy here on WTBQ Radio and owner of Every Good Deed Title Agency. I've been in the abstract and title insurance business for over 20 years. Contact me for a free quote on title insurance and settlement services for your next real estate or refinance transaction. Contact Every Good Deed Title Agency at 986-3713, everygooddeed.us.
Hi, this is Marina Case of the Red Shutters in Warwick, New York. Tune in every Tuesday at 11:30 a.m. for The Style Show, a show about decorating, fashion, and fun on WTBQ Radio, worth listening to.
This is Sister Anna. Listen to The Garden of the Child, a story discussion time with students. Story develops listening skills and imagination. Saturdays at 11:10 a.m. on WTBQ.
WTBQ. Ain't I got you on the back foot? And you know I got you really good.
We are back. Hello and welcome to those who just tuned in. I'm Katie Krahulik, and I'm here with Erin Shanahan. You're listening to Leading Ladies, a women's talk show that features relatable, intelligent, compassionate, powerful, productive women of the 21st century. Our second guest, Susan Allee, is here with us right now. How are you, Susan?
I'm fine, Katie. How are you?
I'm doing well. So Susan has a very impressive resume, and we're excited to share it with you. Can you give us an idea as to what you do, where you're working, what your job entails, what your responsibilities are in that job, etc.?
Okay, so you're not going to give them any. You haven't given them any foretaste of what I do. I work at the United Nations, and I'm a senior political analyst there. I'm a director of a team that deals with peacekeeping for the UN in the Middle East and North Africa. And essentially what that means is that we have kind of operational and political oversight of the UN's efforts on the ground in these places where there are United Nations blue helmets and civilians who are trying to restore peace to a country that has had a lot of instability or war. I find that the best way to kind of translate for people what I do is for them to think of a production like a play or a music production, and to think of the people behind the scenes, the director, the producer, the stage manager. We're kind of the behind-the-scenes people. You have to think of the United Nations Security Council as the producer, in a way, the Secretary General, and my bosses as the directors, and then the team I lead, we kind of translate the operational and the political back and forth to one another from the stage, as it were, which is the field, back to headquarters.
Right, that's amazing. So what projects are you guys working on right now? You know, where do we stand with the Middle East and North Africa region?
We don't stand in a very good place, I'm afraid. There's a lot going on over there that is not very positive. The United Nations has a lot of political and peacekeeping efforts to try to assist in stabilizing a very volatile part of the world. The directly related to what I do are peacekeeping efforts on the borders between Israel and Lebanon and between Israel and Syria, and related to the kind of initial outbreak of war back in 1948 when Israel was first carved out of Palestine, and there were wars with all of Israel's neighbors. And sadly, since that time, although there have been peace agreements between Israel and Jordan and Israel and Egypt, a kind of intermittent conflict flares up with Lebanon, and there's been there were wars with Syria more than once until a peace agreement was struck in the 1970s, and there's a peacekeeping operation on the Golan to try to help keep the Israeli and Syrian forces separated.
Right.
There's another part of the world where I have a peacekeeping operation in North Africa called MINURSO. It's in a little kind of unknown area called Western Sahara, and that's a kind of dormant conflict but unresolved, where a lot of refugees have been displaced for many decades.
Sounds like there's a lot going on there.
Yeah, the UN's political efforts, which really my colleagues do in another team in the Department of Political Affairs, relate to more directly to the current domestic conflict in Syria and also Libya and Yemen, where there are wars. And the UN's efforts are very much about trying to do gain ceasefire agreements through negotiations with the parties and to try to gain political agreements. Again, my team does some backup and technical support to that.
Got it. Susan, how long have you been working with the UN? When did you begin your work there?
Hi, Erin.
Hi.
Nice to hear your voice. I started working for the UN in 1993.
Okay, so you were there during 9/11 then?
I was there during 9/11. That is true.
What was that like?
Gosh, let me think back. I mean, I was experiencing that in two ways. One, as a New Yorker who lived basically a mile and a half from the World Trade Center at the time, maybe 2 miles, and experiencing it as a United Nations staff member. It could be a long story, but the short answer is that, of course, that nobody at the UN was at all prepared for something like that. I mean, just as shocked as any New Yorker on the street.
Right.
And it took in the course of the morning, it actually kind of was almost like something was happening in slow motion. People around me, the leadership even, we were all kind of in shock with each progressive event, trying to catch up. But then there was, of course, a huge flurry of activity with the Security Council, where the kind of main powers get together to try to address major issues. I guess so. One thing that stood out for me is how just nobody was prepared, and the other thing that stood out for me was the immediate sympathy for New York and New Yorkers and the United States from everybody all around the world, from many, many countries who I work with. And the sense, though, even at this global, really strategic level, there was a strong sense that something in the world was now different.
Right.
Right.
Absolutely. Yes, so one thing I do want to talk about is the fact that you are a woman, working in the UN. And so I'm curious as to when you started, what was it like? What were you feeling? How did you think you'd be able to perform? And how has your reputation and your ability to perform progressed throughout the years?
I like to think my reputation has only become enhanced.
Right. I'm sure it has.
I've had a lot of different, quite a number of different jobs and appointments in the UN. The very first job I had was not at headquarters. It was a field appointment in South Africa at the end of, at the time when apartheid was coming to an end, and a non-racial, multiracial, democratic South Africa was being established, and that was a very exciting time to be there. It was a very exciting first kind of global job to have. There was a very small UN mission there, not peacekeeping. It was more of a political and human rights mission. It was headed by a woman,
okay,
a very strong character named Angela King, and I was fortunate to have work with her as my first job, I think, in the UN, because she also ended up being a mentor, and she and actually the very small team I worked with, the leader of my team was a woman. It was kind of unusual because the UN is not...
It's great to hear.
Is not necessarily known for kind of being in the vanguard and having women in leadership positions.
Really?
In fact, the numbers still are pretty poor.
Really?
Yeah, true. But so that was an unusual experience that I think served me well, because both of them really served as mentors for me.
Right.
And I was a fairly confident professional woman at the time. I was already in my early mid-30s, but this was the first time I'd gone into a work situation that was on completely unfamiliar terrain, and where a huge amount of responsibility was thrown on all of us because it was a small operation. So it was helpful to be part of a relatively small mission, too, because men and women kind of pitched in, and everybody helped each other and dealt with crises. And
absolutely.
So it was a very strong initial experience. Over the years, with the different jobs I've had, I've more or less had increasing levels of responsibility, and so you get to know more people globally as well as in New York, and I think that I have mostly managed my responsibilities pretty well, and
well, I don't think you give yourself enough credit, but
I'm pretty well. I have good rapport with my colleagues. I think I work well above and with the people who I supervise, or I try to, because I see that I work for this global effort to make the world a better place.
Right.
And bringing that to the table as your kind of main motivation, I think, really can foster very good working relationships with people.
Definitely.
Susan, what made you want to work with the UN in the first place? When did you decide this is what you wanted to do with your life?
I was attracted to working on the international stage, I think, pretty early on. I lived in London at the end of college when I was kind of wrapping up my bachelor's degree. Just through a certain confluence of events, I ended up with my last semester of college in London.
That's pretty cool.
And so that really kind of wet my whistle for connecting internationally with people. And for a long time, since college, I've been motivated to try to work to improve social justice and human rights in the world. That's just been my driver. Just not sure where that came from.
Right. Definitely. Well, let's take a short commercial break. We will be returning shortly, so don't go anywhere. This is Katie Krahulik. I'm here with Erin Shanahan and Susan Allee. Stay tuned with Leading Ladies here on WTBQ Radio.
This is your wallet talking, and I think we both need to get away. And if we fly Allegiant, we can totally afford it.
Listen to your wallet and visit Allegiant.com. Book a flight nonstop from Stewart International Airport to sunny Tampa, St. Pete, Florida, and Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Save even more when you book flights, rental cars, hotels, and attractions. At Allegiant.com, prices are so low, you just have to go.
Where your heart beats for the fun of it, YMCA.
Calling all runners, young and old. Join us Saturday, July 16th at the South Orange Family YMCA, located at 45 Gilbert Street in Monroe, for our second annual Run for Fun 5K and Kids Color Dash. The 5K starts at 9 a.m., Kids Color Run at 10:30 a.m. After the races, we wipe off the paint and the fun continues with a barbecue, awards, vendors, and lots of post-race activities. Proceeds of the day support the WISE Scholarship Assistance Program. For more information, call the Y at 845-782-YMCA or pre-register at active.com.
This run is being sponsored by the Conforti family of WK Mechanical, located right in Monroe.
Where your heart beats for the fun of it, YMCA.
Hi, I'm Steve Bellner, professional real estate photographer. With over 90% of home buyers searching the internet for properties, professional photos are essential for a successful online marketing campaign. In fact, houses listed with professional photos sell quicker and for more money. Please call me at 845-244-1660 or visit my website, qualityrealestatephotography.com. Sold is just a click away.
That jazz. This is Frank Lowell. Tune in every Sunday morning at 9 and Sunday night at 11 for And All That Jazz on WTBQ. You'll hear music of every style. It's the most eclectic show on radio.
That jazz.
Hi, I'm Pat O'Dwyer. Join me on the Friday Roundtable for a provocative look at politics and the people in our Hudson Valley community on the Friday Roundtable at 9 a.m. on WTBQ.
WTBQ. Ain't I got you on the back foot, and you know I got you really good.
Hello again. You're here with Katie Krahulik and Erin Shanahan. This is Leading Ladies on WTBQ. We have Susan Allee on the phone speaking with us today about her experience in the United Nations. Just making sure she's still there. Susan?
I am.
Okay, awesome. So we had just been talking about, your experience at the UN and what's going on over there and everything of that nature. So given, your position and the work you do, I know you've traveled all over the world. So where are some of the places you've been to?
For the UN, I have been repeatedly to the Middle East, Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, Israel, Egypt. I've been to Morocco and Western Sahara, a little bit into Algeria. I have lived, this is where I've traveled. I've had jobs with the UN overseas, living in South Africa, living in Bosnia, and living in Cyprus.
Right. Okay, amazing. So, since you've been over in these different places and you've experienced the culture and the context of what's going on there, I'm curious as to what the nature of women's liberties and treatment is like in the Middle East, in the Western Sahara, and in, all these other parts of the world.
Well, there are, in fact, certain commonalities. The reality is that women around the world are still subject to much greater degrees of violence than men. Women all around the world are disenfranchised to one degree or another. if not directly through the vote, but through other political opportunities.
Right.
There's a struggle to get equal pay for equal work. There are expectations about women's place being in the home versus in the workplace. The men still tend to dominate leadership and positions of power. I mean, this is pretty much to one degree or another true throughout the world, I'm sad to say. On the flip side, though, what you also see around the world is incredible strength and ability of women in all kinds of environments and all kinds of adversity. You find, in certain corners, you'll find kind of some unexpected power, which is, for example, in this place, Western Sahara, the population called the Sahrawis, or the Saharan people. The women have it's not a matriarchal, but kind of more of a matrilineal society, and so women are very much revered and treated in a more equal basis than you would think in a very remote
location.
Right. In some of Middle Eastern culture where you're going to see more segregation of men and women, one kind of benefit of that segregation is the strong bonds that women build with one another, and I think the confidence they gain from being in those circumstances. So these would be some of the observations that I would make.
Well, that's all good to hear. Women's empowerment. That's what we're all about. That's what this show's about. So that's fantastic. And everyone I think is still working to make sure that we are on the same level as our counterparts. And so what you're doing at the UN is definitely helping to remedy that problem. And so we thank you for being a great role model. And I'm just curious as to also, the way that women are perceived and treated in these other countries. Do you think that has an impact on our culture and attitude here in the United States at all?
Sure. I mean, and I wouldn't say just in other countries. What I said before about the place of women kind of goes across the board. Like I said, in varying degrees. Obviously, we're looking at different circumstances in Scandinavia than we are in, Sub-Saharan Africa. But the world, I don't need to. I mean, it's just going to be a truism. It's becoming such a small place in how, with 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, the internet and news cycle coverage and social media, different parts of the world feel very different, but it's almost becoming impossible to parse out how much one part is influencing another part. There is, I think, a not accurate historical narrative that the West has imposed certain values about human rights and equality on other parts of the world. But even before the UN, I've had contact through different kind of social justice networks I've been part of with women all around the world who have very homegrown ideas about equality and human rights and weren't exposed to some sort of Western-imposed norms and values. And the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was adopted decades ago by governments from all over the world, which includes the equality of men and women, and they weren't strong-armed to do so. So I think there's a commonality in the striving of people who value human beings in general, women and men, that is very common throughout the world. And our job is to make sure that kind of is able to move more to the forefront, I think. When I look at the strife in the world, the conflict, the wars, and the repression of lots of people, this is what I feel is still a struggle for a lot of us.
This is going, these things are going on all over the world, and you are going and seeing it firsthand. You're traveling to these places for your job, but what is it like as a female leader and negotiator going to these places? How is that received by these other cultures when you go on behalf of the UN and they have to speak to you and address you as a woman? I mean, I'm sure in some places it's not as big of a deal as others, but I'm sure sometimes does that become tricky? Is that something that you come across, that it's a problem?
It hasn't been really a problem. I haven't really encountered many issues with that. I know people do. You could argue the merits of the benefits of diplomacy and a kind of requirement in kind of global circles to show one another respect. This goes back centuries, don't kill the messenger sort of concept.
Right.
What you could argue the merits of it, because often behind it are people who are hypocritical and not, and are perfectly willing to stab somebody else in the back as soon as they turn around.
Okay, yeah.
But one consequence of that, I think, is that most of the encounters I've had, as professionally, I have been treated with respect, and even in places where traditions around women and men would not necessarily have a woman in the position that I've been in, I for the most part, have been treated with respect. I mean, there are funny moments, of course, where expectations can be kind of confused. I remember one of my first trips to Damascus. I was with the Undersecretary General for Peacekeeping, who's the head of the department, and I was on the trip with him. At the time I was at several ranks lower than him.
Okay.
But I was also leading a small team at the time.
Right.
So I had my own professional reasons for being there. I wasn't there just in support of him. And we had a break one day, so we went to the market, to the souk in Damascus, and he wanted to buy something for his wife, who was back in New York. I think it was a necklace. And so he asked me if I would, put it on so he could see what it looked like. And so then some of the professional colleagues who we were with, as well as the people in the shop, assumed that I was his wife.
Okay.
And, of course, I was dressed in a suit. I was dressed professionally. There wasn't anything about how we were interacting, except that was the kind of default assumption.
Which is, always annoying that has to be an assumption.
Well, it was kind of amusing.
Right, definitely.
But at the same time, I would say, and I imagine we're running out of time soon, but there are sometimes different expectations of men and women. I have seen, although this is changing, I've seen at the office that if a man takes on the role of having to leave the office early to go get his kids, that's sort of looked at isn't he great to do that? If a woman has to do it, it's like, of course, you can't really count on a woman to stay late because she has kids. I mean, honestly, that happens, although it happens less because times are changing. But at the same time, I've been in a position of being I've worked with a lot of military, because peacekeeping, the civilians and military work together. The UN gets peacekeepers from around the world, and I've worked with a lot of generals, high-level generals, and I've never been military, but with my rank would be is lower than that if it was a military, comparable to a colonel, whatever. And I was, from all different parts of the world, I have usually been treated with respect by them. Right. They would call me in a crisis, not just my bosses, because they know I knew the file so well, and they could count on me to give good advice, and they would take my advice. So, and I wouldn't have always expected that either. So you can get a real mix of experiences.
Right, absolutely. And like you were saying, the world is progressing. It's becoming a better place to live in, and things are changing for the better, but things aren't perfect, and that is the point of all of this. And I don't think it's a good idea to settle. We should always be striving to make it a better place for everybody. But that's all we have time for today. Thank you so much, Susan, for taking the time to speak with us today.
It was great to talk to you, and Aaron. Thanks for doing it, Katie.
No problem. Congratulations on all you've accomplished, and just know that you are appreciated and respected by so many.
Thank you.
That is all we have time for today, but we're doing this again right here, same place, same time, next Saturday at 9 a.m. So be sure to tune in. This has been Katie Krahulik and Aaron Shanahan, and you've been listening to Leading Ladies right here at WTBQ Radio. Thank you. Have a good weekend.